The night air in Seoul was filled with the smell of grilled meat and spices. Tae-ho stood behind his food cart, watching the flames dance under the metal grill. His small cart sat at the corner of the busy night market, where the bright orange light from his cooking fire mixed with the glow of street lamps. It was almost midnight, and the crowd was starting to thin out. Tae-ho hummed to himself as he cleaned his grill, getting ready for the last few customers of the night. His cart wasn't fancy, just a simple metal box on wheels with a grill, some storage space, and a small counter where people could stand and eat. But the food he made here had won him many loyal customers. The night was getting quiet when Tae-ho noticed something odd. A very tall figure was walking toward his cart. At first, he thought it was just a foreign basketball player. They sometimes visited the market. But as the figure got closer, Tae-ho realized something was very different about this customer. The stranger wore a black business suit that didn't quite fit right. The sleeves were too short, showing silvery skin that seemed to shine under the street lights. The man's neck was too long, and his face. Tae-ho blinked twice to make sure he wasn't seeing things. The customer had 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. "Good evening," the stranger said in perfect Korean, though his voice sounded like it was coming through a computer. "I am detecting most pleasant chemical signatures from your cooking station. I would like to sample your food products." Tae-ho gripped his cooking tongs tightly, trying to stay calm. He had seen the news about alien diplomats arriving in Seoul, but they were supposed to be at some fancy government reception across the city. Yet here was one of them, standing at his humble food cart. "Welcome to Tae-ho's BBQ," he managed to say, proud that his voice didn't shake. "Would you like to try our specialty? The marinated beef short ribs." The alien tilted his head at an impossible angle. "Beef? Ah yes, tissue from your domesticated bovine species. And you apply heat and chemical enhancers to it." All 4 eyes blinked at different times, showing genuine curiosity. "We call it galbi," Tae-ho explained, falling back on his experience of explaining Korean BBQ to tourists. "I marinate it in a special sauce with soy, garlic, and pear juice. It makes the meat very tender." The alien, who introduced himself as Ambassador Kip, leaned forward to watch as Tae-ho placed fresh meat on the grill. The sizzling sound made all 4 of his eyes widen, and his silvery skin seemed to ripple with excitement. "This process of applying direct flame to food items," Kip said, "it is quite primitive, yet." He paused, his nostrils, or what looked like nostrils, flaring at the cooking smells. "Yet the aroma compounds are causing unusual reactions in my sensory organs." Tae-ho couldn't help but smile. He had seen this reaction countless times before, though usually from humans, not aliens. It was the universal response to good BBQ being cooked. Pure anticipation. A few other late-night customers walked by, staring at the strange scene of an alien diplomat standing at a street food cart. Tae-ho noticed that Kip kept glancing around nervously, as if he wasn't supposed to be there. "Sir," Tae-ho said quietly while flipping the meat, "aren't you supposed to be at the diplomatic reception at the Grand Hotel?" Kip's silver skin flushed slightly blue, perhaps his species' version of embarrassment. "Indeed. However, my olfactory sensors detected these remarkable scent particles from 2.3 kilometers away. I found myself compelled to locate the source. I may have temporarily disconnected from my security detail." Tae-ho tried not to laugh. The idea of an alien ambassador sneaking away from an official function because he smelled BBQ was both hilarious and strangely flattering. He focused on cooking the meat to perfection, adding a few extra pieces to the grill. Something told him this was going to be an interesting night. The meat sizzled on the grill, and Ambassador Kip watched with all 4 eyes fixed on the cooking process, completely fascinated by the simple act of grilling meat. In this moment, Tae-ho realized that good food might be the universal language he'd always heard about, even more universal than anyone had imagined. Young Mei was walking back to her brother's food cart with fresh supplies when she stopped in her tracks. There, standing at her brother's BBQ cart, was what looked like a very tall man in an ill-fitting suit, but she knew right away this was no man. The silvery skin that caught the streetlight's glow and the 4 eyes that blinked in an odd pattern made that very clear. "Brother, I brought more." She paused, then smiled warmly at the alien visitor. "Welcome to our humble food cart." The alien turned all 4 eyes to look at her, and young Mei had to stop herself from gasping. She had seen the aliens on TV when they first landed last week, but seeing one up close was very different. Ambassador Kip, as he introduced himself, gave what seemed to be his species' version of a polite bow. "Your eating station has attracted my attention with its remarkable chemical signatures," Kip said, his translator making his Korean sound a bit too perfect. "Your brother was about to let me sample some burned animal tissue." Young Mei couldn't help but laugh. "We just call it BBQ," she said, setting down her bags. "But yes, it's the best in Seoul. Though," she looked around carefully, "shouldn't you be at the fancy reception at the Grand Hotel? I saw it on the news earlier." Kip's skin rippled in what they would later learn was embarrassment. The reception's nutrition packets were unsatisfying. When I detected these scents, I found myself compelled to investigate. My security detail is probably quite concerned by now. Just then, 3 more customers approached the cart. Young Mike quickly stepped in front of Kip, trying to block their view of his silvery skin and extra eyes. "Sorry, we're having a private event right now," she called out cheerfully. "Please come back in 30 minutes. The customers looked confused but walked away. Young Mi turned back to see her brother placing perfectly grilled meat on a plate. She knew that look on Taiho's face. It was the same one he got whenever he was cooking for food critics or important customers. "You're lucky," Young Mi told Kip as she grabbed some side dishes. "My brother is using his special marinade. He only makes it for special occasions." Kip watched with all 4 eyes as she arranged small bowls of kimchi, pickled radish, and fresh lettuce leaves around the main plate. His translator made a series of soft clicking sounds as he studied the food. "In the diplomatic briefings, they told us to stick to our nutrient packets," Kip said quietly. "They were concerned that Earth food might be incompatible with our systems. But these scent molecules..." He waved one long-fingered hand over the food, his skin changing color slightly as he took in the smells. Young Mei pulled out her phone and quickly typed a message to her friend Jai-ho, who worked at a nearby convenience store. "Need help. Have alien customer. Keep people away for a while." She knew Jai-ho would understand. He had helped them handle unusual situations before, though never quite this unusual. "You know," Young Mei said to Kip while arranging the table setting, "sometimes the best diplomatic relations start with sharing food. At least, that's what our grandmother always said." Taiho nodded as he worked the grill. "Food brings people together. Maybe it can bring species together too." Just then, Young Mi's phone buzzed. Messages were popping up in the diplomatic news feeds about a missing alien ambassador. She showed the screen to her brother, and they both looked at their unusual customer, who was too fascinated by the grilling meat to notice. "Well," Young Mi said with a smile, "we better make sure this meal is worth all the trouble you'll be in, Ambassador Kip." Kip's translator made a sound that might have been a laugh. "From these scent molecules alone, I believe it already is. Though I must ask, what is this food coma term I found in my research about Earth cuisine? It sounds rather alarming." Young Mi and Taiho exchanged knowing looks. If the ambassador thought the smell was good, he had no idea what was coming when he actually tasted the BBQ. This quiet night at their small food cart was about to become much more interesting and potentially change interstellar relations forever. The moment had arrived. Taiho placed the last pieces of perfectly grilled galbi on the plate, while Young Mi finished arranging the side dishes. Ambassador Kip stood at their counter, all 4 eyes fixed on the steaming meat in front of him. "The meat should be wrapped in these lettuce leaves," Young Mi explained, picking up a fresh leaf to demonstrate. "Then you add some rice, a bit of spicy sauce if you want, and some of these side dishes." She made a perfect little wrap and held it up. Kip's long fingers copied her movements carefully, though he struggled a bit with the lettuce leaf. His hands were clearly made for more delicate work than handling Earth food. After a few tries, he managed to make a small wrap that looked almost like young Ms. The temperature readings from this food item are quite high, Kip noted, holding the wrap close to his face. His skin changed color slightly, shifting from silver to a pale blue as the steam rose up. "Be careful," Taiho warned. "You might want to wait a moment for it to cool." But Kip had already taken a bite. For a moment, nothing happened. The alien ambassador stood completely still, all four eyes wide open, not even blinking. Young Mai and Taiho watched nervously, wondering if they had just caused an interplanetary incident. Then something amazing happened. Kip's silvery skin began to glow. Not just shine like before, but actually give off light, as if he had suddenly turned into a human-shaped lamp. The glow started at his face and spread down his neck and arms. "This," Kip's translator crackled with unusual static. "This is. I lack proper terms to describe these sensations." "Do you like it?" Young Mai asked carefully. "Like it? My taste receptors are experiencing completely unknown reactions. The combination of protein compounds, thermal application, and your chemical enhancers." Kit's voice trailed off as he quickly made another wrap and ate it whole. Taiho grinned at his sister. They had seen many reactions to their BBQ before, but never one quite like this. The alien ambassador was practically bouncing on his feet as he made a third wrap, this time adding more spicy sauce. "The burning sensation," Kip said between bites. "It should be unpleasant, but somehow it enhances the experience. How is this possible? And these small fermented vegetables." He pointed to the kimchi. "They create an entirely new layer of taste interactions." Young Mei quickly took out her phone and started recording. She had a feeling nobody would believe this story without proof. In the video, Kip's glowing form was clearly visible as he continued to eat wrap after wrap, making happy sounds that his translator couldn't quite process properly. "Our species consumes nutrient paste," Kip explained while reaching for more meat. "It provides perfect nutritional balance. We thought this was the peak of efficient food consumption." He paused to savor another bite. "We were so wrong." Nearby, Jaiho was still keeping curious onlookers away from the cart, though people were starting to notice the strange glow coming from their direction. A few had their phones out, trying to take pictures. "Ambassador," Young Mai said gently, "maybe we should move you to the back of the cart. You're glowing quite brightly now." "Am I?" Kip looked at his hands in surprise. Yes. This is a sign of extreme pleasure in my species. It usually only happens at significant life events. I never expected it to occur because of food." Taiho was already grilling more meat. He had never seen anyone, human or alien, enjoy his cooking quite this much. "Would you like to try our special marinated pork belly next?" he asked. All four of Kip's eyes lit up even brighter, making his whole head glow like a lamp. "There are more varieties of this cooking method?" he asked excitedly. "Please, yes. I must experience them all." Young Mei and Taiho exchanged worried looks. They had heard about food comas in humans, but they had no idea what would happen if an alien ate too much BBQ. Still, seeing the pure joy on Kip's face, all four eyes curved up in what had to be a smile. They couldn't help but feel proud. Their little food cart was making history in interstellar relations, one bite at a time. No matter how hard Jaiho tried to keep people away from the food cart, there was no hiding the bright glow coming from behind it. The light from Ambassador Kip's glowing skin lit up the night market corner like a small beacon. It wasn't long before this unusual sight caught more attention, and not just from humans. 3 tall figures in similar ill-fitting suits appeared at the edge of the market. Even from a distance, their silvery skin gave them away as more aliens from the diplomatic mission. They moved quickly toward the food cart, their long legs covering the distance in just a few steps. "Ambassador Kip, One of them called out. "We have been searching for." The alien stopped mid-sentence, its four eyes focusing on the plate of sizzling meat in front of their missing ambassador. "Ah, my fellow diplomats," Kip said cheerfully, his translator making slight hiccupping sounds from all the food. "You must try this. It's called galbi. And this," he held up a piece of pork belly. "This is something altogether different, but equally amazing." Young Mai watched as the new alien's nostrils flared, taking in the smell of the BBQ. Their skin began to shimmer just like Kit's had when he first arrived. One of them stepped forward. "Ambassador, we should return to the reception," the alien said, but its eyes were fixed on the grill. "The humans are." The alien's voice trailed off as Tai-Ho flipped a particularly juicy piece of meat. "Here," Kip said, making a lettuce wrap with expert skill now. "Just one taste. For diplomatic research, of course." The three new aliens looked at each other, then at the food, then back at each other. Finally, the one who seemed to be in charge spoke. "Perhaps a small sample would help us understand Earth culture better." Within minutes, all four aliens were crowded around the small counter, their skin glowing so brightly that Tai-Ho didn't even need his usual cooking lights anymore. Young Mai had to tie up a tarp to hide them from the growing crowd of curious onlookers. "I have a question," one of the new aliens said between bites. "Why do humans gather around cooking stations like this? Why not just consume nutrition efficiently in private?" "Food brings people together," Tai-Ho explained as he grilled. "It's not just about eating. It's about sharing, talking, enjoying time with others." Just then, two more aliens appeared at the edge of the tarp. These ones wore what looked like security uniforms, also poorly disguised as human clothes. They rushed in, ready to escort their diplomats back to the reception, but stopped dead in their tracks when the smell hit them. "Is that heated protein?" one guard asked, their translator barely hiding their interest. "Oh no," Young Mai whispered to her brother. "We're going to need more meat." Tai-Ho poked his head under the tarp. Guys, there are more of them coming. I count at least 5 more heading this way. All really tall, all in bad suits." Tai-Ho looked at his small grill, then at the growing number of alien diplomats, then at his sister. "Young Mai, call Uncle Bowman. Tell him to bring all the meat from his restaurant. Tell him it's an emergency." As if to prove his point, another alien diplomat ducked under the tarp, drawn by the smell and the glow of their fellow aliens. This one didn't even bother with an introduction before pointing at the grill and asking, "What is this wonderful heating process?" Soon, the small space behind Tai-Ho's cart was packed with glowing aliens, all trying their first taste of Korean BBQ. They passed lettuce wraps to each other, made happy chirping sounds their translators couldn't handle, and kept saying things like remarkable thermal application technique and fascinating flavor compounds. Young Mai, still recording everything on her phone, couldn't help but smile. "Well," she said to her brother, "I guess we just changed their whole species' eating habits in one night." Tai-Ho nodded as he put more meat on the grill. "Not bad for a small food cart in Seoul," he said proudly, watching as Ambassador Kip taught the others how to properly wrap their BBQ in lettuce leaves. The night was far from over, and somehow, he knew this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Uncle Bowman had arrived with more meat just in time. The small area behind Tai-Ho's food cart now looked like a glowing alien garden, filled with the light from a dozen silvery-skinned diplomats enjoying their first taste of Earth cuisine. The night had been going perfectly, until Ambassador Kip began to act strangely. "My internal systems are experiencing unusual effects," Kip said, his translator crackling. His glow, which had been bright and steady, started to flicker like a dying light bulb. "My processing speed seems to be slowing down." Young Mai noticed that Kip's 4 eyes were starting to blink at different times, something that hadn't happened before. The ambassador's normally perfect posture began to slouch, and his head started to droop forward. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked, moving closer to the ambassador. The other aliens stopped eating and turned to look at their leader. I feel, Kip's voice grew slower. I feel very satisfied, but also heavy. Is this normal? His words were starting to slur, something they didn't know was possible with a translator. Taiho recognized the signs immediately. He had seen them countless times in human customers who had eaten too much good BBQ. I think, he said carefully, the ambassador is about to experience what we call a food coma. As if on cue, Kip's eyes, all four of them, started to close. His glowing skin dimmed to a soft nightlight level, and his tall body began to sway slightly. Ambassador, one of the other diplomats rushed forward. Our species does not sleep. We do not have this function. Something is terribly wrong. Panic spread through the group of aliens. Their translators started speaking all at once, creating a jumble of worried voices. Some began scanning Kip with small devices they pulled from their pockets, while others started sending urgent messages back to their ship. He's fine. Young Mei tried to calm them down. This is normal after a big meal. Humans do this all the time. But the aliens weren't listening. One of them was already calling their medical team, while another was declaring a diplomatic emergency. The peaceful BBQ party had turned into chaos. Quick, Taiho said to his sister, show them your phone. All those videos you took of customers napping after big meals. Young Mei pulled out her phone and started showing the worried aliens her social media feed. There were dozens of pictures and videos of happy customers dozing at tables after big BBQ meals, all with peaceful smiles on their faces. See, she explained, swiping through the images. It's a sign that the food was really good. People get so comfortable and satisfied that they need to rest. The aliens huddled around her phone, their panic slowly turning to curiosity. They watched video after video of humans experiencing food comas, comparing them to their ambassador's current state. But our species has never needed rest periods, one diplomat said, still worried. We operate continuously. Just then, Kip let out a sound that his translator interpreted as a happy sigh. He had been carefully moved to a sitting position against the cart's wall, and his face showed what could only be described as pure contentment. This sensation, he mumbled, all four eyes now completely closed. It's wonderful, so peaceful. The other aliens watched in amazement as their ambassador drifted into Earth's first recorded case of an alien food coma. His soft glow pulsed gently, like a peaceful heartbeat. The medical team is on their way, one of the security guards said, but he didn't sound as worried anymore. In fact, he was looking at his own empty plate with new interest. Do you think, will this happen to all of us too? Young Mei looked at the many empty plates around the cart, then at the group of well-fed aliens. Some of them were already showing signs, slower movements, drooping eyes, dimming glows. Maybe we should set up some cushions, she suggested to her brother. Something tells me Ambassador Kip won't be the only one taking a little BBQ nap tonight. Taiho nodded, already pulling out the extra cushions they kept for late-night customers. Who would have thought that his small food cart would not only introduce aliens to BBQ, but also teach an entire species about the joy of a good food coma? The alien medical team arrived in what looked like a normal soul ambulance, but the equipment they carried was anything but normal. 5 aliens in white coats rushed behind Taiho's food cart, their silvery skin barely hidden under their human disguises. They found Ambassador Kip still sleeping peacefully, surrounded by several other drowsy diplomats. This is unprecedented, the head doctor said, waving a glowing device over Kip's body. Our species has never entered a state of unconsciousness before. This could be dangerous. Young Miss stepped forward, holding her phone. Actually, I've been doing some research. Look at this. She opened a medical website about food comas. It's called postprandial somnolence, in scientific terms. It's completely normal after a big meal. The alien doctors crowded around her phone, their 4 eyes scanning the information quickly. One of them pulled out a tablet-like device and started comparing readings. But our digestive systems are different from humans, another doctor argued. We process nutrition through. He stopped when he saw young Miss face. Ah, right, classified biological information. Just then, a black car with diplomatic plates pulled up to the market. A human in a suit stepped out. Mr. Park from the Foreign Ministry. He looked at the scene in front of him. A food cart surrounded by glowing aliens, some awake and worried, others dozing peacefully, and a very nervous Korean family in the middle of it all. Would someone please explain what's happening here? Mr. Park asked, straightening his tie. Before anyone could answer, one of the alien doctors shouted, Ambassador Kip's consciousness levels are rising. All eyes turned to Kip, who was indeed starting to stir. His glow brightened slightly, and his 4 eyes began to open one at a time. He looked around, seeming confused at first, then broke into what appeared to be a smile. That was remarkable, Kip said, his translator working perfectly again. I feel so refreshed. How long was I in this state? 43 minutes, Young Mai said, checking her phone's timer. Pretty normal for a food coma. Mr. Park looked even more confused. Food coma? You mean the ambassador fell asleep after eating? Sleep, one of the alien doctors exclaimed. Our species hasn't needed sleep for 10,000 years of evolution. We thought we had evolved past it. But these readings, he showed his tablet to the others. The ambassador's mental efficiency has increased by 27% after this rest period. More alien diplomats were waking up now, each looking surprised but happy. They all reported feeling better, more alert, and strangely peaceful. The doctors rushed around, taking readings and making excited noises their translators couldn't quite handle. Mr. Park, Kip said, standing up slowly, I believe we need to modify our diplomatic agreement with Earth immediately. The human diplomat looked worried. Sir, if our food has caused any problems. Problems? Kip laughed, a sound that made his translator buzz. This experience has shown us something wonderful about human culture. You haven't just mastered the art of cooking food. You've discovered the joy of resting after a good meal. Our species has been missing out on so much. The alien doctors were now comparing more readings and chattering excitedly. The combination of complex proteins in the cooked meat, along with the relaxation response from eating in a social setting. One was saying, this could revolutionize our understanding of rest and recovery. Young Mi couldn't help but smile as she watched Mr. Park try to process all this. The poor man had probably expected to handle a diplomatic disaster. But instead, he was watching aliens discover the simple pleasure of a post-BBQ map. So, Taeho said carefully, does this mean you'll be coming back for more BBQ? Ambassador Kip turned all 4 eyes to him, his skin glowing with pleasure. My friend, I believe this is the beginning of a very important cultural exchange. After all, he looked at his fellow diplomats, who were nodding in agreement. How can we properly understand humans without understanding the joy of good food and peaceful rest? Mr. Park sighed and pulled out his phone. I'll need to report this to the ministry, though I'm not quite sure how to explain that Korean BBQ just introduced an alien species to the concept of napping. 3 months had passed since the night Ambassador Kip first discovered Korean BBQ. Taho stood in a large, shiny room aboard the stellar Commonwealth's biggest diplomatic ship, watching as workers installed his new grill. The room looked like a mix between a fancy restaurant and a science lab, with both cooking equipment and strange alien devices everywhere. The ventilation system is specially designed. An alien engineer explained, pointing to the ceiling. It will spread the cooking smells throughout the ship. Our research shows this increases diplomatic meeting success rates by 43%. Young Mi laughed as she unpacked boxes of cooking supplies. You mean everyone gets along better when they can smell good food cooking? Exactly, the engineer said, all 4 eyes blinking happily. Though we had to add special warning signs about the food coma effect. Some diplomats were falling asleep during important meetings. The story of what happened at Taiho's food cart had spread quickly through the alien diplomatic community. Soon, other alien species started visiting his cart, curious about this Earth food that could make the never-sleeping Commonwealth species take naps. Each new species had different reactions, but they all loved the food. "Brother," May called out, holding up a tablet with Earth news on it. "Look at this." The screen showed pictures of new Korean BBQ restaurants opening on various alien worlds. Some places had even started making their own versions of galbi using local alien meats. Taiho smiled as he checked his new grill's temperature. Their small food cart had started something bigger than they could have imagined. The Commonwealth had officially named Korean BBQ as Earth's first intergalactic cultural export, and had asked Taiho to open the first authentic Korean BBQ restaurant in their capital city. "The sleeping pods are ready," another alien worker said, pointing to comfortable-looking beds hidden behind sliding doors in the walls. "For the food coma effect." Just then, Ambassador Kip walked in. He looked different now, more comfortable in his alien skin, no longer trying to hide in ill-fitting suits. His silvery skin glowed softly as he smelled the test meat Taiho was grilling. "Ah, that wonderful aroma," Kip said happily. "You know, our scientists have been studying the food coma effect. They say it's not just the food, it's the whole experience. The cooking smell, the shared meal, the peaceful feeling afterward. It's changing how our species thinks about rest and community." May nodded as she set up the side dish stations. "That's what we've been trying to tell you. Food brings people together, or in this case, brings species together." The restaurant was set to open the next day. They had already received reservations from 12 different alien species, all eager to try the famous Earth BBQ that had changed intergalactic diplomacy. Some diplomats had even started calling it peace meat because of how it helped smooth out diplomatic tensions. "Oh," Kip said, reaching into a bag he was carrying. "I brought something to show you." He pulled out a small device that projected an image in the air. It showed a classroom full of young aliens, their skin barely glowing yet. "This is from our main school. They're teaching about Earth culture now, and your BBQ card is in the history books." Taiho stared at the image, amazed. The text under the picture read, "The Great Food Discovery. How Earth's cooking methods revolutionized Commonwealth social practices." "We've also added sleeping periods to our daily schedule," Kip continued proudly. "Not just after meals, but regular rest times. Our productivity has actually increased. Who knew that stopping to rest could make you work better?" May smiled as she watched her brother prepare more test dishes. Their little food cart back in Seoul was still open, now run by Uncle Bo-min, and visited by both humans and aliens. But here, on this giant spaceship, they were about to start something even bigger. "Ready for tomorrow?" she asked her brother. Taiho nodded, placing perfectly grilled meat on a plate. "Ready to teach the galaxy about good food and good rest, one BBQ plate at a time." 1 year had passed since that first night when Ambassador Kip wandered to Taiho's food cart. The small BBQ cart in Seoul had grown into a proper restaurant, with both human and alien staff working together. The sign above the door read Galaxy BBQ, Earth's first intergalactic restaurant, in both Korean and the Commonwealth script. Tonight was special. Ambassador Kip was bringing a group of new alien diplomats for their cultural initiation, as he now called it. May watched from behind the counter as they entered, their silver skin shining under the restaurant's warm lights. "Welcome to Earth," Kip said to the group. "What you're about to experience will change your understanding of food forever." His skin was already starting to glow with excitement. The new diplomats looked nervous. Like all Commonwealth aliens, they had never eaten solid food before. They had spent their lives consuming nutrient paste, thinking it was the most efficient way to eat. But that was about to change. Taiho stood at his cooking station, which now had both traditional grills and some alien technology that helped him cook at just the right temperature for different species. He had learned that some aliens liked their meat barely warmed, while others preferred it nearly burned. First-timers, he asked Kip with a smile. Fresh from the Commonwealth capital, Kip replied. They've heard the stories, but they don't believe them. They think we're exaggerating about the food coma effect. Young Mi laughed as she set up the table with lettuce leaves and side dishes. In the past year, they had learned that most alien species could eat earth vegetables safely. Some even said the kimchi helped their digestion. The new diplomats sat down, looking at the raw meat with a mix of worry and curiosity. One of them pulled out a scanning device, but Kip gently pushed it away. No scanners, he said. This is about experience, not analysis. Watch carefully. He picked up some cooked meat with his chopsticks. He had gotten very good at using them, and made a perfect lettuce wrap. The smell of grilling meat filled the air. In one corner of the restaurant, 2 alien diplomats who had finished their meal were already dozing peacefully in the special sleeping pods. Their soft glow made the restaurant feel warm and cozy. Is it true, one of the new diplomats asked, that this earth food made you sleep for the first time in your life? Kip nodded, helping them make their first lettuce wraps. It taught us that sometimes the old ways aren't always the best ways. Sometimes you need to try something new to discover something wonderful. Tai-Ho placed the first batch of perfectly grilled galbi on their table. The new diplomat's skin began to shimmer as they smelled the food. One brave diplomat took the first bite. Their eyes, all 4 of them, went wide with surprise and joy. This is. Their translator couldn't find the right words. Soon, all the new diplomats were eating happily, their skin glowing brighter with each bite. Young Mai noticed their movements getting slower, their eyes starting to blink more often. The food coma was coming. Should we prepare the sleeping pods? She asked Kip quietly. Of course, he replied with a smile. It's tradition now, after all. In the kitchen, Jiho, now a full-time employee, was teaching a young alien chef how to mix the special marinade. The alien's 4 eyes watched carefully as Jiho explained about pear juice and garlic. You know, young Mai said to her brother as they watched the new diplomats enjoy their meal, when you first opened this food cart, did you ever think we'd end up here? Tai-Ho shook his head, flipping more meat on the grill. Never. But I always said good food brings people together. I just didn't know it would bring whole planets together. As the evening went on, the new diplomats one by one drifted into their first food coma, joining the peaceful scene in the sleeping pod corner. Ambassador Kip watched them with pride, remembering his own first experience. Another successful diplomatic initiation, he said happily. Earth's greatest gift to the galaxy. Good food and good rest. And so, in a small restaurant in Seoul, humans and aliens continued to share meals, stories, and peaceful naps, proving that sometimes the best way to unite different worlds was through a simple plate of well-cooked BBQ.